Hello, here I am.
There, can you see me too?
I cannot. I see only, there you are.
And
Now,
if whoever's talking, it seems to jump to it automatically. So,
well, it's Larry Mason talking.
well, I guess we should start by welcoming anybody who's listening to the Invisible Hand Show. This is the first time that Larry and I have actually succeeded in talking live here on the air, and I'm going to go ahead and let him lead.
Going to let me lead?
Well, yes. I mean, you're the author of the book, after all.
Well, thought I was here to answer questions. So there you are.
Well, since nobody's here yet, is there anything pressing that you've been wanting to get across to people?
No, other than there's no such thing as a free lunch. You're not going to understand this stuff unless you read the book or listen to it.
Well, actually, there would be quite a few free lunches if we adopted this system.
But people will be being paid for producing those free lunches.
That's true. Free to the consumer, not uncompensated.
Right.
Which is the point that I think people do have the most difficulty grasping. Free doesn't mean uncompensated. People who provide it are well compensated. The more benefit received from what they do, the better they're compensated.
Of course. It's only fair.
So I guess it's still just you and me for now. Let me see if anybody's coming up in the chat room. I don't see any, excuse me, I don't see any viewers yet.
Well, at least you don't have to think of everything to say this time.
Well, I'm just glad we successfully both got in here this time, so it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Yes, well, I only had two battles. One with installing the software, and the other with getting Google to recognize my passwords.
Well, that's not too bad.
Well, I allowed an hour and a half to manage it, and it only took about an hour.
Technology, no matter how good it gets, there's always something to be desired, right?
Oh, yes, a learning curve.
Well, the kids seem to grasp it pretty quickly.
Well, they're already further up the curve. They don't have anything to unlearn in comparison.
I don't know about you, but they laugh at me a lot.
That's a good thing. We can be entertaining that way.
I mean, my kids.
Well, I have kids. In fact,
Yeah,
I even have a granddaughter.
they find it amusing when we can't figure things out that come intuitively to them.
When I want to do something special with my cell phone, I hand it to one of my baseball players and say, I want to do so and so, and he figures it out for me.
Well, you know, but back to the system that we promote, that would actually get them paid.
Yes, it would.
If they could figure something out for us old folks, they'd actually be getting paid for it. They could make a whole business out of it.
Escorting grandma across the street and get you earn you money. So,
well, it is sort of the modern day equivalent of helping grandma across the street when it's helping grandma use technology she doesn't understand.
exactly. Both an educational function and an assistance function.
Yeah. Well, I think the people that get the system the most are gamers, because a lot of the way that the money works is similar to the way video game points work.
It also has a lot of similarities to what we used to call saving stamps. When you bought groceries at the grocery store, you got so many stamps per dollar. And after you filled up so many books, you could turn those books in and redeem them for the appliance or whatever of your choice.
Well, that may be how you get the older folks to understand it, but I don't think the kids would get that.
I don't think that they would.
I remember the
With trouble.
stamps. In fact, I got, I think it was a ukulele many years ago with those stamps. My first musical instrument.
Well, I'm afraid I never actually cashed them in for myself. I was always giving them to my wife or my mother and letting her buy things.
I don't even remember what the range of products was, but I think most of it was spent on dishes and silverware and tablecloths and housework like that.
Yes, household items. Because most of them were being redeemed by women. Women were doing the grocery shopping, women were getting the car filled with gas and so on. And they were the ones who were bringing in most of the stamps by buying things. And therefore, they were the ones who went to the trouble of pasting them in the books and keeping track of the books and all that. So they were the ones that did most of the redeeming.
That would make sense. You know, a while back, I think you were talking to somebody about making a video game based on the novel.
Yes, and I worked on that for a couple of years, and the game got bigger and bigger and more complicated and more complicated. And I could see that by the time I finished writing the game, I'd be dead. It took me 20 years, so I gave up on that. Also, the game, as I was putting it together, was using the Perl programming language, which is sometimes called the internet, the duct tape of the internet. But the problem with that is, though it can do it, it isn't the kind of language that is intended for such things. Also, I didn't have any of the images that a game would require. It was the behind-the-scenes game mechanics that I was working on. So the game would be much more like a chat room in which you type in what you're going to do, somebody else types in what they're going to do.
The real old-fashioned type of games. Basically.
Very old-fashioned type of game.
Well, you know, maybe somebody will view this conversation as someone who's in game development somewhere, whether it's in college, like maybe at Full Sail University, or some game development team or team member that's looking for a new idea, and we could meet with them or discuss it with them. Because I think if it were put into a proper video game context in a role-playing game, such as the ones my kids play, it could go a long way towards explaining it much better and thoroughly and
absolutely quicker.
Well, it would spread on its own.
But it would people would understand it more quickly than they do now by reading the novel.
Right. Right. I mean, but I do believe that the knowledge would expand exponentially at that point as new players entered the game and began to understand the rules.
That's another advantage.
Also, I think possibly I've been talking about, I think an anime version of the story would probably be ideal. As I thought about the scripts from way back that never went anywhere that I was doing for this, I realized that the least expensive way to produce it is probably going to be animated rather than live action, because with live action, the money that they'd have to come up with for the special effects and the technology that needs to be depicted would be prohibitive. But as far as animated goes, they all cost about the same because it's all illustration.
But who does the illustrating? They automated that.
I'm not saying it's cheap, because you have and it's similar to game production because you have a team. With game production, you have somebody who writes the storyline, which in this case would be taking your storyline and making it into the game storyline, but also having some offshoots for variation. And of course, creating the characters, on paper as far as their characteristics go. But then the other members of the team do things like drawing the scenery, the technology, the characters themselves, and I don't even know how many people
think it would take one.
are involved. When you get to the point of putting the whole thing together, the team can get quite large, from what I understand. But that's the limit of my understanding on it.
That's what I would expect.
Yeah, there's definitely a format that they follow, a protocol or what have you. So it's it's just a matter of finding the right team that's excited and passionate and motivated about it the way we are. And I think that'll emerge eventually. Maybe the kids are just now, they could be 12 or 13 years old now, and we got to wait till they're 14 or 15 before they really get excited about it and start putting it together. I really don't. I don't believe they have to be adults. I mean, the one part of the book shows how clever some of the kids can be, as we're well aware of that. I mean, it's not like adults have a monopoly on success.
I don't think I exaggerated about those extra bright kids at all. I think that they would amaze almost anyone with what they can do mentally.
Yeah, the kids in the story were pretty realistic as far as I've seen it. I mean, with my kids and their friends, trying to suggest that just because they haven't been to college or that because they're young and they don't know as much as their elders just doesn't hold water at all.
You're quite right.
In fact, I'm more often to ask one of my kids when I need help on something, but then again, my sons are stronger than I am, so that's sometimes a matter of just physical differences too, not intellectual.
Do you know the age of any of the people that have read the book? I mean, I can't tell. Obviously,
that would be interesting. Maybe we should find a way to poll everybody that we're in contact with and see if we can get a good idea of that. But as far as I know, they range from about mid-teens on up to around your age. So
well, mid-teens.
Between.
Mid-teens would be good. If they enjoy reading it at that age, that's excellent. That really is encouraging.
Yeah, there are. In fact, my son and his girlfriend who live here, they enjoy buying and reading paper books still. It's interesting in this day and age when these kids that they can afford to go buy a Kindle or any kind of device they want. But when it comes to reading the books they want to read, they're more likely to go and get a paper copy than to read it in electronic form, which is funny because I'm more likely to read in electronic form these days, particularly because of my asthma and allergies. The dust that books attract just makes them less attractive to me than they used to be.
But well, they can for $1 they can buy it for their Kindle, and it's going to cost a lot more than that to kill a tree to make a book for.
Exactly. I don't really encourage people to read it in paper form, but it does seem to be a distinct preference, at least among a subset of people. I mean, I don't know how many of the kids are really into reading in paper form.
That's why we try to make it available in as many formats as possible.
Well, also on the website, we have no way to measure how many people have read it all the way through, how many people have downloaded the MP3s and listened to all of them all the way through.
Right.
So it would be nice to hear from people and have them tell us, whether it's in the Facebook group or here on the, when we're finished talking today, this video will be rendered as I mean, this hangout will be rendered as a video on YouTube on the Voluntary Virtues channel, and they can leave comments there too. But for anyone who's listening now or may listen later, it would be nice to know. It would be nice to know a lot of things about, did you read it in paper form? Did you read it online? Did you listen to it? How old are you? How did you come to hear about the invisible hand and the economic system that we promote? Maybe we should make up a whole questionnaire.
Well, though, if from a marketing point of view perspective, it's nice to have that information, but I don't think that we are marketing that is the typical kind of product here. So I don't think most of the marketing suggestions are going to work that well for us. There is another aspect, however, which I would think this would be a good venue for talking about. Uh, I developed the concepts behind the invisible hand, thinking of it as an economic system. And it wasn't until years after I'd written the book that it suddenly occurred to me it's also an ethical system. It's not an ethical system, it's not just an ethical code, like, say, the Ten Commandments or even the Bible, nor is it an ethical system like the law is an ethical system. It's enforcement mechanisms. But it is an ethical system in that it causes people to behave ethically. And to me, that is almost unique among ethical systems. And for those people who are spiritual or religious oriented and so forth, I would be really appreciative of hearing from folks who can look upon it that way and see if it has conflicts or does violence to their own sense of ethics or their religious principles. Because it seems to me that it certainly seems to fit the Christian religion, as my family has told me about it. I come from a long line of Methodist preachers. It also seems to fit Buddhism quite well. I haven't noticed anything from the small amount I know about Islam that would conflict with Islam. I mean, certainly being nice to people seems to be something which all religions accept and encourage. So I would really like to get some feedback from people who have strong ethical concerns about the world today or strong religious principles that they see threatened in the world today, and how they would see the principles of the invisible hands as an ethical system would fit in with their principles.
The main religious complaint I had from one person was that she's one of our friends from Gather, R.I.P. Gather. Maryland.
It got me started on this.
Maryland and Ohio. She said that she did not like this system because it would not allow her to tithe in the way that she was accustomed, and she didn't like the idea of having to come up with other methods through which to tithe her 10% to the church.
I don't think she realizes or realized, she may now, but originally the tithe was 10% of your agricultural products that you produced in your farm, 10% of the wool from your sheep, 10% of the grain from your crop, 10% of the hides from your cattle, 10% of the cheese from the milk. It was 10% of your agricultural produce. It was in goods. It was in commodity money. It wasn't in coins. And yet she finds that now that her religion demands coins or currency.
Yeah, that is interesting to me, but that's the only complaint I've ever had as far as religion goes. I've had other people that we're nervous about other aspects. For example, um, the fact that there will be cameras everywhere. But as you've pointed out before many times, we're going to have cameras everywhere anyway. The question is who's going to be watching them and what are they going to be doing?
Yes. The cameras are coming whether we like it or not. The cameras are not part of the system. That's just what the world is going to have going on in 15 years.
Right. The cameras are not part of the monetary system. They just make it makes it easier to prevent crime, for one thing. So it would naturally make sense to have average citizens watching the cameras. And if you have average citizens watching cameras, that might even be better for some people than soap operas or something, because they're watching real life and they can actually get paid if they see a crime they can prevent. But for the most part, I think people's incentive to commit a lot of crimes will diminish too, because a lot of crimes are economically motivated. For example, muggings and so forth, where people are trying to get the 10 or 20 bucks the poor little old lady has in her purse.
Well, the crime will reduce because, number one, you can't steal money because it doesn't transfer. And number two, if you steal something, it has to be because you want that something, because you can't trade that something you've stolen for money to get something else. You're stuck with holding the goods that are hot. So in effect, by keeping whatever it is you stole, you're keeping the evidence that you're a thief, which makes it much easier to enforce the law. But also, it means that there's far less temptation to steal because there's far less opportunity to steal. So in that regard, at the very least, crime would drop enormously.
I'd personally be happy to see that. Every day, people ask me, "Oh, did you see this? Did you see that?" I don't watch the news anymore because I don't want to be up to date on every little thing that's going to get me down. And if it's really major, I'm sure it's going to come across my Facebook news feed, or somebody's going to call me and say, "Oh my God, you have to hear what happened." But overall, I do try to keep it on the cheerful side as much as possible and seek out news on things that interest me. But I guess in a way I'm kind of isolationist because I do avoid information that I can't do anything about that might bring me down.
Well, that's quite sensible. That's a good thinking. But also, it's comforting to know that the problems we've got are not inevitable. I mean, if you're a regular person who hasn't been exposed to these ideas, you always figure, I've got to worry about inflation. I've got to worry about people stealing from me. I've got to worry about people cheating me. I've got to worry about war happening. I've got to worry about government oppression, because these things we always have with us. We've always had these things, and we always will have them. But those who have read the book know, hey, we don't have to live with these things. We don't have to put up with this. We can have it better. And once we fix it, it's a permanent fix. The bad stuff won't come back.
I have myself muted so my face wouldn't keep jumping up every time I sniffed or something. Yeah, I do think that people have a hard time grasping that once that has been eradicated, it's not coming back because there's no reason for it to come back.
Yes, and can you imagine trying to persuade somebody who believes the ethical system, the economic system that is shown in Invisible Hand? Can you imagine them saying, I want to go back to having war and organized crime and taxes, and I want to be oppressed by my government, and I want to have to suspect all my friends of trying to steal from me and trying to cheat me, and every time I go into a store, I will have to worry about whether it's a fraud or not. I mean, There's just no way.
No, and I think most of us who've read the story would prefer to step into the pages of the story and live in that world than to stay in the current paradigm that everybody's out to get each other, dog eat dog,
Yeah,
too much incentive for war and crime and just being mean to each other.
yes. We don't have to put up with that. We can change things. We can make things better.
If we want to badly enough.
All we got to do is spread the word. It's gospel. It's good news. If we can just get people to pay attention, it'll sell itself once people understand it.
Well, I'm hopefully when we get better at this hangout stuff, more and more people will start to listen and pay attention. So we just got to keep talking about it.
Well, I'm perfectly happy to. It's one of the things that I enjoy most.
But we still have 5 minutes left. Is there anything that you really wanted to emphasize?
Let's see. Oh, uh, people sometimes will ask me, well, how would you handle so and so in your system? And all they can figure out what my answer is going to be it by thinking, now, what would be the best way for people to act to deal with that problem? Because whatever that is, however the best thing for people to do, that's what they'll get paid for.
It makes sense to me.
And the screen went dark on me, so I assume that it's trying to end.
No, I actually muted my camera for a second while I took a drink of my beverage.
Aha, that's just fine.
I'm still playing with the controls and learning how all of this works now.
Well, at least you've learned a whole quite a lot because we managed to make it work once.
Right. Progress. All right.
Thumbs up all the way.
Yeah, well, you can see down there at the bottom of the screen where you and I, our faces keep changing places. And hopefully, eventually, we'll have a whole line across the bottom of the screen of other people's faces joining us and taking turns asking the questions that you're eager to answer.
That would be a good thing, and they will be very, very welcome.
Well, hopefully soon. Do you have any more coaching engagements in the upcoming future?
None that I know of. So far as I know, until August, I'll be able to be present every Friday night, 7:30 to 8.
Awesome. Although you might have to babysit, right?
Well, emergency, my wife can probably babysit for her granddaughter.
Yeah, it's only a half hour.
Right.
Well, you never know. Maybe someday my grandson and your granddaughter can meet.
Well, it's going to take a while.
Actually, there's supposed to be some kind of thing going on, but we'll talk about that privately.
Okay.
I think it would definitely be fun to get all the people that really believe in this economic system together as just as a group somewhere to meet up in person and to just brainstorm and see what interesting ideas we can come up with when we put all our energy together in one place.
Well, the more ideas, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
The screen just went black. I don't know. Maybe that is a warning that it's time to wrap it up.
My computer says it's 8 p.m., so the next show must be on.
Okay, well, I guess we can wrap up by thanking anyone who did tune in or who is listening to this later on, especially if you struggled through with us and made it all the way to the end. We appreciate you taking the time to do so, and would love to hear your comments in the thread below, whether it's here on YouTube, on Google, on Facebook. Feel free to contact us anytime. You got any last words for the day over there, Larry?
Right now, flip the switch.
Well, I guess all I can say is adios, and see you same time, same place next week.
NoPalm.info.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now.